here. All right, it looks like we are up and running again, which is nice. Yeah. Took a moment. Oh, let's put the screen up. The wall scroll. There we go. There we go. Oops. Totoro is here. Yay. Let's see. Oh, we should also double check the YouTube lower third, which is probably off. Hey, Gene. Happy Friday to you. It's definitely a week where I'm very glad that it's Friday. Definitely ready for the weekend. Ready to talk some anime. It's been a fun week. Been a tiring week. I had so I'm an instructor for a tech boot camp, and this was our first full week of class for our new group of students, and so getting everything up and ready and up and working has been a bit tiring. I actually taught all day today. It went well, but it is tiring to stand in front of students for more or less 8 hours straight. Well, 8 hours with lunch in the middle, and teach them tech. But it's done, and it's all good. Let's see if I can adjust this light a little bit. We need to update some of the lights in here. Things are a little yeah, need some tweaks to some of this lighting. But anyway, so yeah, we're here and we're gonna talk some anime. But well, actually, I did watch some anime over the past week. I finished Cells at Work, which feels real good because I started watching it, when it came out basically, and paused a couple episodes in, and it was nice to just sit down and get all the way through Cells at Work. It's a fun show. Animation's a little at times. A lot of characters off model in that show, but it's inventive and it's heartwarming and it's fun. It's also nice to see that not every episode had the exact same plot structure. First couple episodes are basically the same thing over and over, but they do vary it over time. That's good. But yeah, that was that. So we got some Cells at Work in, and I'm trying to think what else. Watched a few episodes of Dororo. That was pretty cool. I'm just waiting for folks to come in. Looks like we got. Not sure if we have any one. So my YouTube stats are always funky because they'll say I have no one watching, but 3 people will then chime in saying, "Oh yeah, I'm here." So we'll see if we get a few more folks. I'm actually starting a little late tonight because of technical issues. But yeah, it was a. What's weird? Is that the new? Should be. Actually, I can check something real quick. Oh yeah, that's not. 1 second. YouTube chat does not want to. Yeah, that should be it. Huh. YouTube chat's a little funky. Just had to refresh. Okay, it's weird. Refresh is just weird. Hey, Fisher. But yeah, it's saying no one's watching. That's bizarre, but obviously you folks are here, which is cool. So yeah, finished Cells at Work, which I'm definitely glad I finished that. And it does build to an ending. Doesn't build to an ending, but there is an ending, which is nice. Also watched the first, I think, 3 episodes or 4 episodes of Dororo, which oh my gosh, that is everything I wanted it to be. Really impressive work there. A lot of thought put into the show. A lot more depth, I think, than in the manga. I'm looking forward to finishing Dororo and then really comparing that to the manga and digging in and analyzing it. That should be pretty cool. There's just a lot of cool stuff in there's a lot of potential in Dororo, story wise and character wise, and it looks like this show is really exploring all that potential. Dororo being a wandering samurai epic kind of a story with a very weird twist. So I'm really glad to see that that's being done well. Also nice, it's an Osamu Tezuka story, and they've updated the character designs quite a bit. You know, his style can be a bit off-putting to people, and it's nice to see that they didn't completely change it, but it looks more modern, for lack of a better term. And I think that was the right choice for this story. It needs to not look like it comes from the 30s, basically, or the 40s. So that's one of those things. So how are you all doing? What have you been up to this week? What have you been watching anime-wise? I feel like I watched something else. I'm going to pull up Mal and see if there's anything on that list that I watched. Log me out. Weird. Oh. Did I change the password on here? I must have. Oh, I think I have an old password on there. No? What's my password? Let me show you all my passwords. Oh, sure enough. Still trying to get used to having a MyAnimeList account and actually keeping it up to date. Let's see here. So where's top airing? Where's like my recently added and such? Go to my profile. Statistics, favorites, comments, recent anime. Watched an episode of Zombieland Saga, which was fun. What's that? Yeah, Cells at Work. Zombie Loan? Must have checked out Zombie Loan. Oh, that was me adding stuff from way back in the day. So Cells at Work, Dororo, and an episode of Zombieland Saga, which is a lot of fun. Redline, love Redline. I've watched that movie twice now. I'm a sucker for crazy animation, and Redline is definitely that. And by crazy, I mean just really remarkable. Not just high quality, but something where the animators really kind of go into town and throwing weird stuff at you. I think it's always fun to watch. Started Gintama. Well, that's a commitment. Definitely. Good luck to you. I'll be curious to see what you think of it. You're out of your anime funk. That's awesome, Fisher. Glad to hear it. Let's see here. Game Escape had a great idea for a topic. To talk about anime that were sort of flops, commercial failures, critical failures, but that nevertheless are interesting for what they attempted. So something that's kind of shot for the moon and didn't really succeed. I think Redline is actually not a failure, but an example of a movie that I feel should, certainly is underhyped. People don't talk about Redline much, it seems. Certainly considering the animation quality and all that kind of stuff. There was a lot of discussion when it first came out, and then it seems like it kind of died on the vine in terms of popularity. But it really shot for the moon in terms of story and such. Oh, there was another thing I watched, but we'll get back to that later. Game Escape brings up Angel Cop, which is just has all sorts of problems, but also throws all the 80s and 90s tropes together in a really fun way. And I think that's an interesting thing. I think there's definitely a lot of anime out there that's had neat ideas, but folks just couldn't jump into it. Folks just really weren't crazy. I think certainly Quiet Country Cafe, Yokohama Kaidashi Kiko, the slice of life post-apocalyptic OVA and manga that I love is a good example of that, where the premise is just a little too different for most people. But I think folks would. I think if you tried it, you'd like it, for in most cases. But not for most people. Let's see here. There's some other good examples. There's one called Wizard Barristers that I actually quite liked what I saw of. It's about a world where magic exists, but there are laws against improper use of magic, and the main characters are all barristers, lawyers who defend magic users in court cases, and it's all kind of over the top. But not it's not over the top in the sense of goofy. It's over the top in the sense of gonzo, or not even that. In the sense of strange situations, big bold characters, but in a pretty grounded world, despite having magic. But the character designs are a little more realistic. The world feels a little more real and physical. Yeah, Fisher, I don't know. I think I totally hear you on that. I think Iria was pretty popular back when it came out over here in America in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was on pretty heavy rotation on Sci-Fi Channel. And then when it came out on DVD, I got the sense the DVD sold pretty well, but then yeah, it kind of died. And OVAs are usually pretty hard to keep going. It's it's one of those things where you have to be pretty special for an OVA. If it's just an OVA, nothing else to last. Although they did release the live action movies over here in the States. And Iria is now on Amazon Prime, I believe, or Netflix, one of the two. They got the rights to that. So you can watch Iria right now, the anime. And oh my gosh, that is such an interesting world. Really inventive, really kind of thought out world in terms of things being very different but still consistent within their world. And just being a fun, big, bold bounty hunter anime, right? No complaints. You need to go back and rewatch it one of these days, because I do fear that OVA is not going to hold up to my memories very well. Like, I don't think it sucks, but I think it's, I think I watched that at a very particular time in my life. And I'm probably not going to be able to recapture my love in quite the same way. So I'm curious if it holds up in the same way as back in the day. Hey, Game Escape, we're discussing your topic right now of things that didn't really catch on despite having interesting ideas. Definitely think Wizard Barristers is one. I think Gundam, just didn't really catch on, which is really a shame. Scrolling down here through my list of things. I do feel like Time of Eve no Jikan, it certainly gets some critical appeal, I started late myself. But Time of Eve, people talk about it, but I feel like Time of Eve should be like a Miyazaki movie. It should be, or a Mamoru Hosoda film, where folks should be aware of this. It should be in the regular conversation among people just talking about anime in general. And I feel like it never really gets out of that, hardcore sci-fi nerd discussion, which is really a shame, because I think Time of Eve is a really thoughtful, really interesting work. Kind of a shame, because it's about androids in a very serious way. I don't know if this is a failure, but I think the Super Robot Wars franchise has never really made it outside of Japan, or maybe Asia, I don't know. But certainly in America, it feels like the Super Robot Wars anime, as well as the games, just kind of fizzle, despite being this really interesting kind of meta world. And even in the anime series, obviously they don't have all of the characters from all the different other anime series, just have their own characters. But those characters are such perfect pastiches of mecha cliches that you can just really enjoy all of that stuff in Super Robot Wars if you're a mecha fan, and even if you're not. But I have not seen The Cockpit. I've heard of it. Yeah, and I hear you about that game Escape. How there are definitely those works that really sum up and capture a particular style perfectly, but just the plot of the characters or the animation or whatever just really don't work. Um, I really didn't like the Skycrawlers. My review of the Skycrawlers kind of sums up my views where it looks beautiful, but it's just not really the plot and the characters are really dull. I don't know that the Skycrawlers was a failure, but it certainly was the last major animated work by Mamoru Oshii that I know of. So it feels like it was the end of his animation career. And although Innocence may have come out after that, but Innocence is a special case. And I feel like Skycrawlers was one of those things that could have been really. It had interesting ideas, but just the presentation was kind of too manic. It would jump between these crazy, um, cockpit air battles and these really dull scenes. Yeah, I mean, Iria was just one of those things where you wanted to really delve into that world and and really understand it all. I wonder if there were any like role playing materials. That feels like a perfect setting for a role playing game, a tabletop role playing game, or a video game that would kind of delve more into that world. That'd be pretty cool. Let's see here. Scrolling through failures with interesting ideas. I always thought Romeo x Juliet was a very interesting idea. I only watched the first episode, which I did enjoy, but it was all pretty much set up. And I thought that just the idea of adapting a classic work of literature as a big, epic anime series was really intriguing. And it didn't have to be Shakespeare; it could be kind of anything. It could be, Frankenstein. Um, and it just seemed to die, sadly. But I think those sorts of, again, shoot for the moon concepts are pretty cool. Outright racism, interesting. That's weird. Yeah, it's pretty rare to see cultural sensitivity in anime. I'm sorry, it's pretty rare to see racism. Cultural sensitivity is, yeah, that happens quite a lot. Hmm. I mean, you will occasionally get characters who are racist, but that is, clearly portrayed as bad in the work. Let's see here. Other things that had interesting ideas. Oh, Real Drive. Real Drive is an anime series about a college-age girl who was a ballerina as a young girl, like preteen girl, and then had an accident, just literally just kind of tripped and broke her foot, or broke her ankle, and as a result, she could not be a ballerina professionally. She just never could achieve what she needed to with that injury, and so she's now just gonna, go to high school, go to college, and have an everyday life and have a desk job somewhere. And then she discovers this, and it's set in kind of a near future. These motorcycles that transform into this sort of hybrid mecha form, and you ride around in. And she starts getting really into this, and basically because she was a ballerina, as you can imagine, like a motorcycle that then sort of transforms into this two-wheeled thing, requires a very, very, very good balance, which she has a lot of because she was a former ballerina. And so she does not know the mechanics well at all, but she can control these things like they're extensions of her body. And but the story, from what I've seen, I'm only about a third of the way through. The story is more of a drama. It's presented more like it's like a live action, melodrama, if you will, with that twist of this sort of quasi mecha aspect. And when I say mecha, I mean these things are not massively big. Again, about the size, they're bigger than a regular motorcycle, but not absurdly huge. But then like there's a whole thing around terrorism, and basically terrorists using these machines, and so she kind of gets involved in fighting back against that in a weird way. But it's it's not a fantasy show. It's not a she's not a magical girl. She's not roped into being a special agent. She's a college student, and just these are kind of things going on in the world and things going on around her that she ends up kind of getting involved in, but it doesn't have any of those tropes you get in a typical anime series around, okay, and now it turns into a basically police drama or whatever. So I really like that premise, and it seemed to die on the vine. No one cared. And I think partly because it's it is a quiet, dramatic series. And not dramatic in the sense necessarily of The Last of Us, but in the sense of more about sort of the regular stresses of life. And I think that's one of the reasons why it just didn't resonate with a lot of people. It just wasn't exciting enough, sadly. I like that. There's Nasu Somewhere in Andalusia, which is a film about competitive bicycling. So like bicycle races. So think of professional running or any professional sport. There's professional bicycle races like the Tour de France. And this is about one of these races and a guy who's in one of these really long bicycle races and the stresses he has and the backstory and so forth. It's just this lovely animated thing. The director is a Studio Ghibli alum, and it's about sport and trying to improve yourself, but it's all about adults. I mean, like there are some younger characters in it, but it's it's not about the angst of growing up. It's not about adolescence. It's about having committed to this path and having reached a point. I don't think it's a spoiler to say he's reached a point where he's really good at what he does, but he's not world class, and trying to. I mean, he's world class in the sense that he's competing on that stage, but he's not, this generation's top performer. And so him kind of dealing with that aspect of kind of reaching your plateau, your personal plateau in a field, and what do you do? How can you move forward with that? Can you move forward with that? And what do you want to do with your life, right? How much do you want to push things? Rescue Wings. It's funny. Thank you for bringing that up. I just found a copy of that because I remember checking it out years ago and thinking this is watched the first episode and thinking this is a really interesting show. I want to watch more, and then it just fell off the radar. And I recently grabbed it and pulled it down so I can finally finish that one of these days. So yeah, it's about the Japanese Coast Guard basically. So folks who go in to rescue people who get into emergency situations, and just about that. So think like any kind of like an NCIS or whatever, but or any rescue drama, but an anime series about that. And they're all adults, they're all professionals. It's really interesting seeing that concept. And again, it just died on the vine. No one cared. Why not? Lots of neat ideas out there. But folks just, I don't know, wrong timing. I think creative shows that are just about adults dealing with adult things are not that not big of a deal. People already have real life shows, and they feel like they don't really want to try that. I'm just seeing on my scroll Pupa, because I don't know how many episodes into Pupa, like 5 or 6. And I thought that was a legitimately interesting show. People hated the animation. I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, it's not great, but it's to me it's fine. It felt like a stylistic choice, but basically the idea is this girl gets this contracts this really. Or is it the girl, or is it her brother? Two siblings who lived together for a long time. It doesn't say because they don't explain who the names are. Okay, yeah. So brother and sister. The girl contracts gets this curse or disease or whatever. Mysterious virus, and turns her into this horrible monster. and her brother is partially infected, so he can kind of control it. And he's basically trying to um, keep her alive and kind of feed her and make sure that she can, the known hunts her down and kills her because she's now this horrible monster, and kind of keep all this secret and find a way to save her. And I thought that premise where, you care very much about this thing that is now, this person that's now this horrible, horrible thing, where you have to do terrible things just to keep that person, or keep that thing alive and safe. That's a neat premise for a show, but folks just hated it. And I think it's just because of the style of the animation, the relatively low quality of the animation. It just didn't really, 3.66 score on my anime list. And I don't really care about scores, but that tells you that folks are really not a fan of that. But I thought it was a really interesting idea. But again, it doesn't really get explored enough, I think, in anime. Being forced to do really tough things, like right out of the gate, not just you build up to your one horrible choice in episode 12, that just every day you're doing these terrible things. Yeah, what I saw of Rescue Wings was clearly, made very much out of respect to rescue workers. And granted, Japan has a long history of rescue workers doing a lot of work and being involved with, and people being very aware of that. And so seeing a show that really pushes that up is cool. Other shows that failed despite interesting ideas. There's a show that seemed to drop off the radar, though I'm not as familiar with its fandom, called Sanrio Danshi, or Sanrio Boys. This is from a couple of seasons ago. Last year, so last winter anime season. And basically it's about teenage boys who love Sanrio products, so Hello Kitty products. And it was made by the Sanrio company, or funded by the Sanrio company, to try to branch out into larger markets, to recognize that there are people outside of, 8-year-old girls who like Sanrio products, and, just kind of expanding their market reach, and also kind of making, trying to communicate to those folks who do like Sanrio stuff that it's okay. You don't have to be an 8-year-old girl to like Sanrio stuff. It was a neat idea. Yeah, I've not seen the second Gunbuster, but that, so I can't say how ambitious it was, but I mean, just doing a sequel to Gunbuster is ambitious enough, right? That's you got guts for doing that, and I think you do have to deal with the fact that was not successful. The fans pretty much, I don't think they completely rejected it, but they were just like, this is not Gunbuster. This is not the sequel we wanted, so to speak, out of Gunbuster 2. But gosh, good on you for trying to do it. Now that I've seen the original Gunbuster, I can watch Gunbuster 2. I may actually have Gunbuster 2 around here. I think I may have, bought a copy of Gunbuster 2 at one point, without realizing I hadn't watched the original. Or, no, I think I bought Gunbuster 2 thinking it was the original, but found out, oh, this is Gunbuster 2. So one of these days I'll be able to pick that up. But yeah, I think it's interesting that Sanrio show to see a massive company like that, with a massive character like Hello Kitty, to try to make a show to really move into a different fan base and appeal to a different fan base. And at least for American fans, it seems to have just not gotten any interest. But again, I'm not that familiar with that side of fandom, so I might be wrong. Straight Jacket. Man, I don't know that was. Straight Jacket is a pretty obscure OVA from 2007. Set in a magic world. The guy uses magic powers to fight off devils, I think, monsters, something like that. It's one of these very kind of grimdark one man fighting back against the tide of evil premises, where the protagonist is pretty crazy. I'm sorry, the premise is pretty crazy, and the protagonist is pretty standard. But it just never really came together for me. So I don't know if it was all that impressive for its premise. Now that I think about it, I think it was just one of these things. It was, a thing. What else we got here? What about you guys? Are there any anime that you think didn't do well, but was trying something interesting? You certainly see that all the time in literature, in movies, where somebody will really push and try to do something crazy and impressive, but they just don't have the skill, don't have the ability. There's a great documentary called American Movie. They came out 15 years ago or so, I think, maybe 20 years ago, and it's about a horror movie fan in the Midwest, who has decided he's gonna make a horror movie, and he just has none of the resources he needs to do that in terms of actors, sets, money, locations, all that stuff. Just he has nothing, and he's not. He also doesn't really have, and I say this with love, any of the kind of directing skills to do that. Right? Like it's not like he doesn't have anything, but oh my gosh, he has the best idea in the world. He just wants to make a horror movie, and it doesn't really, you're like, oh man, this is gonna be terrible. And so you're gonna follow him on his journey trying to make a horror movie. And it's just really interesting seeing somebody who is starting from zero, but doesn't really have anything to go beyond zero. But surprisingly not depressing. Fuan no Tane. I've never heard of that. And I'm going to get back to your suggestion, Gene Starwind, here in a second. Fuan no Tane. Interesting art style. Collection of short stories dealing with urban legends, ghosts, and superstitions. Interesting. Masaki Nakayama. Definitely looks interesting. Cool. Cool. 3 volumes so far. Interesting. I completely agree with you, Gene, on the Astro Boy movie. Because I love the Astro Boy movie. The CGI one. I thought that was an impressively cogent retelling of the Astro Boy origin story, because I think it really understood who that character was and communicated the character of Astro and the situations he's in and so forth really effectively. And I thought that the color palette was really nicely done. They really thought through sequences that would be shaded a certain way, colored a certain way. It has this slightly soft tone to much of the movie, but it really thinks that. It really thinks through that, and through it thinks through its world. It thinks through all sorts of elements of that. And I thought it was well done overall, but it wasn't 2D. Made at a time when folks were just up in arms about 2D versus 3D anime. And it wasn't like a straight adaptation of the original story, which, to be fair, like Tezuka himself redid that origin story multiple times and changed it each time. So I can't hold that against the film. But folks were just really meh about it, which is a shame. Kind of killed the CGI studio too, which is another shame. Seemed to... they seem to be putting a lot of hopes on Astro Boy, and everything kind of evaporated after that, which is, again, kind of a shame. Gotcha, Seth. Cool. Yeah, I always love those things that just really creep you out in very simple ways. See if there's anything else on the list. A lot of the stuff I'm seeing on the list are, were legitimately successful. Or just died for good reasons. one I talk about a lot, and I can't say much about. There's a short anime called Erda, the Third Reich. It was on Netflix briefly, and you can find it around. I think it's been on DVD and it's on streaming here and there. It's a CGI anime from when? 2002, and it was originally a series of 5-minute shorts, 5 of them, which they then, basically re-edited back to back into this 25-minute story. And it's basically a time travel story. And it's mostly just an action story of this woman fighting off, various enemies, Nazis being the primary enemy. But it has this really nice, time travel element to it that comes together in the end. One of those things where I'm like, oh, you really did want to make this a time travel story. Like, there wasn't just a premise to make something exciting. You thought that through, which is really cool. And I feel like folks just don't talk about it. Kind of understandably. It's definitely obscure. I can't even think what obscure means. That's not one. You know another one? A movie. Attack on Concrete. Which is a... Let's double check here. Film from 2006. Made by Studio 4C. Who's the director on this? Do they say? Where's the... Yeah. Characters, voice actors. Michael Arias, that's right. Directed that. Who is a foreigner living in Japan who made it up to director. And done a lot of interesting stuff. Harmony, working on the Animatrix. Did an episode of Ani Curry, actually, which is pretty impressive. Which one was that? An Invasion from Space? Yeah, Invasion from Space, Hiroshi's Case. That's a really cute little short film. So Attack on Concrete is the story of a couple of boys living in this sort of quasi-Tokyo world, very urban, grungy world. Just one of these very urban storylines. And a really interesting animation style. Really different. Yeah, Please Save My Earth is definitely different, interesting. I've got the first couple of volumes of that manga. And that's a really interesting premise. It was huge in Japan, but I think over here in America we just ignored it. It came out in the 80s, which is a kind of a weird time for anime popularity over in America. But yeah, Please Save My Earth, really interesting premise. Basically, a teenage girl starts having these dreams about conversing with other people, like essentially another life, where she's conversing with other people in a moon colony, where they can see Earth, and so they're on this little moon base. And she has these conversations with them, and she wakes up remembering these conversations. And then at school, she overhears somebody talking about a dream they had the last night, which was that conversation. But it's from a different person's perspective. And she starts talking to that person, other people, and she discovers that they're all having those same dreams, but each from different people's perspective in the dream. And so basically, they realize that they are either remembering or flashing forward to another life that they all have together, or will have together. So they were all like scientists on this moon base, and they're just remembering it in these dreams, so they're talking about it. And so it makes for this very interesting premise where they're trying to figure out what that is, and so of course you start getting some relationship stuff between them, and people start falling for each other. But that's partly because those dynamics existed in the other group, and it's a question of kind of predestination, right? Is the fact that I was attracted to you in the dream world, in the other life, is that influencing my feelings now? Now that I'm looking at you, and you know, has that piqued my curiosity in you? Interesting idea. It's a really cool premise for a story. Not familiar with the real life history you're referring to there. If there's any interesting drama around that, but the manga is really cool. Let's see here. Anything else? Anything else you guys wanted to talk about tonight? Besides that, as I mentioned earlier, I had a long week, but a cool week. But an exhausting week. This is our first full week with our new batch of students at work, and so I was literally on my feet all day today teaching, except for lunch. And I was. I came home and I was ready to just collapse. Oh, interesting, Seth. I can imagine some people started getting obsessed with that concept and I can totally imagine like middle schoolers starting to tell stories to each other and saying, "Oh yeah, I dreamed that too," and that escalates and escalates and escalates. Yep, people are like that. Very interesting. So, yeah, so finished cells at work, watched some Dororo. Oh, that's the other thing I want to talk about. On Tuesday or Monday night, I think, I watched Mirai, Mirai the Future, Mamoru Hosoda's latest film, and I'll definitely be doing a review slash analysis thing. I think Mirai is not going to appeal to anime fans as much as Hosoda's earlier works. Not because because it doesn't deserve it, so to speak, but because it is about a toddler, basically, and his perspectives on his family. And I think there are too many modern anime fans who just find young children repulsive, frankly, and just don't want to watch a story or a movie about a young child, especially one who is, let's just say, rather not. This boy has an appropriate emotional maturity for his age, but it's a modern story about a modern boy. There's a fantasy twist, as with all Hosoda films, pretty much. Yeah, all of them. But you know, spoiler alert, they're not going out to save the world. Right? It's not Spirited Away. It's not a lot of these other stories where there's some big epic thing. Really cool, interesting stuff happens, and there's some spectacle in the film. But it's ultimately about just this family dealing with being this family. So it's this kind of quiet domestic drama, really, beautifully animated, with some wonderful, fantastical twists to it. Although you can totally view the film as not being fantastical, which is an interesting thing, but I'm not going to spoil that. It's weird. I find all of Hosoda's films just gorgeous to look at, and it's tough for me using that word, gorgeous, using words like gorgeous and beautiful, because they're so subjective. But it is something that I just kind of keep coming back to. That there's something about how those characters are drawn, the backgrounds, the setting, the location, that's just gorgeous in that Studio Ghibli way, without it consciously mimicking Studio Ghibli's art style. I just really appreciate that. I also appreciate how consistently on model all the characters are. Just they all look like themselves. You don't get that weird thing where suddenly it's like that person's nose is way too small, or their eyes are really off. But yeah, it is a story about a modern family, and a young boy dealing with the stresses of, well, not a spoiler to say, the stresses of having a new younger sister, and what that means for family dynamics. But it's a lovely film, and it does build, and it does go somewhere, and it does also build in spectacle, which is really, really impressive. But because it is this quiet film, I don't think it's going to resonate with people. It just doesn't have it, and because it's about that young character. It is very much, I think, Mamoru Hosoda's Totoro. Indeed, there are several like visual references to Totoro, things where I'm like, that's basically that shot from Totoro that he's referencing here, that he's reusing here, more or less. So I think it's definitely in that vein, and again, Totoro being about this small family. But Totoro's a very different beast. Haha. Sorry, bad joke. And that does not. I don't think that Mirai is an inferior movie. I don't think it's a bad movie, but I think because of his subject matter and because it's about this emotionally immature little kid because he's a little kid and little kids are emotionally immature, and I could empathize with that because I've been around little kids like that. And I understand what it's like to not have the emotional tools to deal with the situations that you're around. But I think too many anime fans are just going to be they're going to be hard out when they hear about that, or when they see that that's the concept, and they're just going to tune out of the film, which is really a shame because it is, it has heart. It has all the heart in the world, and if you like animation, you got that all over the place. You got those wonderful, quirky Hosoda characters, where people are, not crazy over the top, but just different enough, just distinct enough to really stick in your memory. It's one of the impressive things about the film, actually, is that you really get to know these characters. And it's a long film. It's about 2 hours. But you really feel like you know this family by the end. It actually reminds me a bit of Satoshi Kon's films, where they tended to be very human. And this, I would argue that this is Hosoda's most human film. Next to Wolf Children, which is definitely, one of these tugs at the heartstrings kind of family films. But this really is focusing like a laser on those family dynamics. And I think without the distraction of the kind of the werewolf aspect of Wolf Children, much as I love that aspect, I think making this about, humans, people, really centers the film and really makes it something that, I got weepy while watching it, and I left the film thinking, wow, that was a film. That was an experience I went through. It was absolutely worth going to the theater for. It was absolutely worth spending the time on. I want to rewatch that film multiple times. It has that Ghibli quality, where it's like, yes, this is a thing I could go back to over and over. So yeah, very impressed. And that's my thoughts on Mirai. Anyway, I think it's going to do it for us for tonight. Been going for a little under an hour, about 48 minutes. But like I said, I'm a little exhausted today. Fortunately, I know I've been saying this for a while, but fortunately, now that we're getting into a rhythm with work, I think over the next few weeks that'll settle down, and I should be able to move forward. I should also point out, I'm planning to, but I'm not absolutely certain. I'm planning to restart the Anime Club tomorrow. Again, I may crash tomorrow and be unable to do that just physically. I may just basically be asleep for Anime Club. But if not, then I'm going to restart Anime Club. Probably will do Ergo Proxy, more episodes of Ergo Proxy. So keep an eye out for that. I'll post in the Discord, and I'll definitely post a YouTube video about it as well, so folks can head to the Discord and get up to Rabbit that way. But that is the plan there. So thanks, everyone, as always, for stopping by. You really helped the conversation, as always. Really appreciate having you all around. And that will do it for us for this week. So thank you all. Hope you had a good week, and hope next week is even better. And until next time, watch more anime.